So hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Today we will talk about tips. Today we will talk about tips and tricks on how to work with Collaboard. The webinar will last around 60 minutes and we have a lot of specific online whiteboard know-how for you today. So this webinar is for users who already know Collaboard and are familiar with online whiteboards. And it should enlarge your horizon and provide you some inspiration what you can do with an online whiteboard. Before we start, a short introduction. So myself, I'm Michael Görög. I'm one of the co-founders of Collaboard, and I'm working now for more than 6 years with the online whiteboard technology and gained a lot of experience. And I'm happy to share some of these experiences today. And I'm doing this using Collaboard. Collaboard is an online whiteboard which we developed in Switzerland. It's now a 6-year-old product, and we're very happy to have Collaboard. So it's a very interesting journey we went through in the last year, and I'm happy now to show you what you can do with Collaboard and go into more specific details. Our agenda today is quite short, but we will spend some time on each specific point. So first of all, we will focus on board design. So I will share some tips and tricks on how you can design boards, also what you can do to make board looking appealing. Then in the second part, we will focus on onboarding and icebreaker exercises. So let's assume your role is to onboard other people in your organization to work with the online whiteboard technology. Then you will get some ideas. And when you do a lot of online meetings and workshops, sometimes you need an icebreaker to loosen up a little bit the mood of the people you're doing the workshop with. So we will show you some ideas on how to create them with an online whiteboard. Then we will look on the board organization. So basically, when you work for a longer time with Collaboard, you might end up having 50, 100 boards or whatever. And in this case, you need tools to organize them. So I will show you how you can do that, some best practices. And in the end, we will look together at the Collaboard Roadmap. So I'm happy to show you what's coming next in our application. So the next features, next improvements, and that's basically what we are going to cover today. So let's start with the board design. As most of the times in life, the first impression counts. So first impression is usually very important. And when we invite now people to our online whiteboard, we want to make sure that we provide the best first impression. So what we need for that, we need to be sure that we know the location where they join our board. And in our case, this is the center of the board. So every whiteboard you create in Collaboard has a center. So these are the coordinates of 0, 0 in this case. And I will show you now how to find this center. And to do this, we are just opening up new board, then a new project. And now when we started a new board, we are already in the center. So I'm adding now this circle, and in this circle, we will now find the center of the board. So maybe let's move it a little bit like here. If you want now to know where the center is, we can click here on this grid. And now you see we have this grid which we display. And in this grid is this tiny black dot. And this dot indicates the center of the board. So let's zoom in a little bit. And when you invite now people to your Collaboard project, they're always here in the center with a zoom level of 100%. And with this knowledge, you can make sure that the things they see at the beginning are what you like them to see. And in this case, you have a very good way to make sure you can create a great first impression. So when you use Collaboard, either for collaborating inside your organization or maybe with clients and partners, it's always nice to use your corporate identity or your corporate design. And one element of your corporate identity and design are your unique colors, maybe the colors of your logo or whatever. And in Collaboard, there is a very nice and easy way to apply these colors. So let's say this sticky note shall be in the blue of this ocean we see here. So in Collaboard, I have the option to choose any color on a sticky note, or what I can do as well, I can choose this color picker. And in this case, I can just hover over maybe the logo of my organization or the logo of one of our clients. And then in this case, I can just grab the color of the logo and apply it to my sticky notes. And I can do this also for the background color of my board. I can do this for text, for shape, and all the other elements. So you will see this color picker, which I have just shown you now, where you could also enter a hex code if you want. You will find this on all the other elements in Collaboard as well. And with this feature, you can really make the board very unique and specific to your needs, basically. Now, when you prepare and create the board, it's also important to create appealing boards. So you see, I'm now using here a special image in the background to symbolize this journey we are going to start on creating new boards. And that's basically one of the first things I'm going to show you. So I will show you how you can work with shapes in Collaboard and use these shapes, for example, to build lovely boxes. So this is some sort of a design part, and I want just to share with you some of tips and tricks how I design my boards. So let's have a look what we want to do. So we have here our target design. So you see I created some boxes, and in these boxes I created an agenda for a meeting. First, where we have an introduction of our meeting, then we look at the expectations of the attendees, and then discussing the next steps in our meeting. And what I'm showing you now is how you can easily rebuild that by yourself. So you get the basic understanding on how to work with shapes in Collaboard. Okay, let's start. So first of all, we need a shape. So let's start here with a rectangle, change a little bit the size, something like that. And now what we want to do is we want to give this shape a specific color. So let's choose this purple. And in our case, we don't want that the shape has a border. So we're going to remove that border. Now we're just duplicating this shape. Instead of the violet background color, we choose just white. We're moving this here over this other rectangle, make it a little bit smaller, something like that. And you see, with only a few clicks, you already created the box. And to make it exactly the same, we need to do it like this. So we have this box created within a few seconds. And from my point of view, it looks nice. It's just nicer than just having a box with a single color. So adding this shadow effect is something cool. So now let's rebuild this agenda. So for this purpose, I'm just selecting everything. I'm duplicating that, moving it here a little bit down. And maybe adjust it a little bit. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to rebuild this agenda. So how is this done? We will start with a shape. In this case, it's a circle. And when you add now a shape in Collaboard, you can just make a double click, and then you can start typing in text or whatever. And in our case, we are just using a number. Now we want to make this circle a little bit smaller, and to be sure that the proportions are not deserted, we are using our Shift key from the keyboard and making it a little bit smaller. Now we need the font bigger. And in our case, we just want to have also now just the border colorized. make it a little bit bigger, something like this, and this is already done. Now, to speed up the process, we just duplicate this once and duplicate it again. If you want to make sure that they are all on the same level, we look at these red lines, which are created here in this case. So we're using these red lines. Now we're saying here it's number 2, number 3. And to make these connections, which we show here, we use the connection feature. So basically what we're doing in this case, we're just connecting these dots with each other using these connectors. And now it looks already like that. The last thing we are doing now is adding some text. So in this case, we're adding the text. We're saying introduction, adding it here, making it a little bit bigger. So you see now this text object has the size, font size 48. So if you make this now a little bit bigger, you see that the font size is also changing automatically. And what we're doing now is we're just duplicating this for the others. And the last element, the last thing we did here in the end was basically adding then, was basically adding some other text and also this clock icon. So in this case, let's add this clock icon. So we are going to the shape library, go to all shape options. And then you see you have here a variety of shapes you can use. And if we look now at these process shapes, we find here this specific icon. We can add this and resize it a little bit and say here another text element. So we're just duplicating that and say, okay, it's 5 minutes. And now I have 2 options to resize this text element. So I can always do it like this, or I can say here, I would like to adjust it and make it a little bit smaller. And you see, with only a few clicks and in a few minutes, you can start building something like that. So I made on purpose these kind of containers or boxes because we will look at them later as well when we look at the quick links, as you can reuse these containers for some other purposes. But this as a short introduction, how we are moving from this target design easily to our by step to this target design. Now, when we create the board, this is usually infinite in its size. So what we want to make sure and where we want to help our users is to find the right place, the right piece of content on our board. So we have 3 options to create links on the board. And we will look now together on these 3 options, how to create links, as I think that's a very useful and very important feature. So first of all, we can work with object links. So let's say we want to create a link from this sticky note to that sticky note. We can do it like this. So we click here on more, then I think I need to go a little bit up. Then we click here on link to, and now we can select here an object link. So let's do that. Now we just select the object. In our case, we take this sticky note here. We say now we want to create a link. And what we have done now is, you see above the sticky note, there is now this icon. So this is basically now linked with each other. And as soon as I click on this icon, I'm jumping directly to this sticky note. In case I'm moving that sticky note, so let's say I'm moving it outside of this box, then this link is still valid. So it always brings me to that sticky note. And with this option, you have a very nice way to bring people to a specific element on the board just with 1 click. Now you can do something else. So every object in Collaboard has its own link. So what you can do here as well, you can copy the link of this element. Now we have this link in our clipboard. And if I am pasting now this link here in the browser, I'm jumping directly to this element. So let's assume you're doing a workshop or a meeting, and some people really have trouble finding a specific element. You can always copy the link and reuse this link. Or let's say you have a manual created somewhere for a workshop, then you can put the specific links to the objects, so people can just click on these links and then jump directly to these specific elements on the board just with one click, basically. And this is how you work with object links. Now, in Collaboard, we also have a concept called quick links. And that's somehow similar, like the object links, but it allows you to create a link to a specific area on the board. So what we're going to do now is we are creating 3 quick links for these 3 areas. And maybe just let's add some content. So here we are adding 10 sticky notes, and we're also adding another 10 here, and we leave the last one empty. So when we're now to create the quick link, we just select the whole group or the area of the object. And now we say here we would like to create a quick link. So let's just name it area 1. Now we do the same for the next one. So we say here this is area 2. Now for the third one, which we say is area 3. So simple. Now, when we created these quick links, we have always the option to click here on this icon that looks a little bit like a compass. And now you see here, this area 1, area 2, and area 3. There are some quick links which we created in the last session. So I'm just removing them. So we're having now these 3 quick links. And the beautiful thing is now with just 2 clicks, I can jump directly to this quick link on the board itself. And let's assume now we're moving this area. So this last area here, we're moving it up there. And now we're adding some content. So let's say we're adding here as well some sticky notes. Maybe we are going to add a shape as well. So let's look here for a nice shape. So let's add here, for example, this ball. So now this quick link is still valid, and I can always go here, go to this area 2, and then jump directly to this position on the board. And this really helps me to create an agenda for my meeting, for my workshop. And using these quick links is even more easier than working with the object links, because you can create them for complete areas on the board. Now, if we look at the quick links, you also see there is a keyboard command like Ctrl+Shift+1, Ctrl+Shift+2, Ctrl+Shift+3, and so on. And what you can do in this case, you can use them to easily fly from one position to the next one using your keyboard. So I'm doing this now. So you see we are jumping with a very nice animation to area 1, now to area 2, and then up again to area 3. And that is something really cool. So you can use this to do a presentation on the online whiteboard, or in case somebody is lost, you can just tell him, hey, try to click on the compass. There you will find our agenda, or maybe just use the keyboard shortcuts. There are multiple ways to work here with the quick links on the board itself. Now, there is a third way to add links to objects, and basically you can add a link to any URL you like. And I want to show you 3 examples. And one example is from doing workshops. So often when you do a workshop, maybe you start with a bigger group, and then you go into breakout rooms. And when you use an online whiteboard, we might not talk about breakout rooms, but we're talking about breakout boards. And in our case, what we can do here is we link now this door with another board. Let me make an example. So you have a big group, and now you want to divide them into 3 subgroups, and one group is going through the blue door to the blue breakout board, another one through the red door and the green door, and so on. So I think you get the concept. And the cool thing is now the following: people who are part of the blue group, they just need to click on this link, and with one click, they are coming to our blue breakout board. And I'm using these colors because it makes it much easier also for me then to differentiate, okay, that's the blue group. And the cool thing here is that you really can choose any background color you like. So in Collaboard, if you go to the settings, you have here the option to choose any blue you like, maybe the blue that is exactly the same of the door we have seen before, or then the color of your organization. So that's something I really like. And let's assume we have done a lot of things on these breakout boards and want to bring it back to our main board. We just select everything, we copy it with Ctrl+C, and then we can put it to the other board with Ctrl+V. Another use case of using these links where we add a URL to an element is linking to a file, for example. So in Collaboard, you can upload a PDF, a Word, an Excel, or a PowerPoint presentation, but you can't really edit these documents. So let's assume in this Excel file here, which I uploaded, you want to make changes. So in Collaboard, you have just a visual representation of this file. But you are using the online whiteboard as a central point of entry for your users. And now you want to direct them to the original file where they can change the content. So in this case, they can now just click on this link. And in our case here, it's a file which is lying on my SharePoint Online. So in this case, I can start changing this file and working on the Excel basically. So that's another option to add these links. And the third option is basically to link any website. So if we are looking at this link feature, we see here, we can put here a web address, and that could be any web address as long as it is HTTPS. And if you're doing that, in our case here, we linked the Collaboard website. So I just need to click on that link and I'm jumping to the Collaboard website. And I think that's really nice because the online whiteboard is usually a visual representation of your knowledge, of content or whatever. And then using links to jump to external sources like websites or files just enriches the experience working with an online whiteboard a lot. Now, this is what I wanted to tell you about links. So now we are moving on to our next topic, and we're still discussing board design. And our next topic is working with images. So when you create an online whiteboard, images are super important because images are the key for great visualizations on your board. And therefore, it's so important to know what images to use and how to work with them. Now, let me give you some tips regarding images. When you add an image, like I did here, you need always to think about if your attendees should be able to move this image or not. In case you don't want them that this image shall be moved, then you need to lock it. And as soon as you lock an image, you can't click on it anymore. So if you want to unlock it, you need to go here to select and say that you want to be able to select locked objects. And as soon as you activated that, you can select it again, you can unlock it, and then you can move it again. So that's super important. We will see afterwards some examples when we look at the onboarding and icebreaker exercises. So locking and unlocking is key functionality on the online whiteboard, because if you don't lock some of the content, you can be sure that users will move it around. Maybe you want that your image is also in the background. Maybe you have like a canvas or something like that, business model canvas as an image, and now you want to put sticky notes on that. So in this case, you have the option to move elements into the levels. So let's say this image here, we want to bring it on top. So we just say bring forward or bring to the front. And now it's on top of all of the other elements. And what's important here to know is that you can move elements always completely to the back or to the front, or you can do it level by level. And the big question now is, how many levels do exist in Collaboard? In the end, every element you add has its own level. So this means if you add a new element, like I'm adding now a sticky note, or okay, let's just add one. If I'm adding one sticky note, as I added it after all the other elements you see here, it has a higher level. So in this case, it's always on top. And one last thing I would like to tell you when you work with images, which is, from my point of view, very important, is thinking about what kind of images you want to work with. And I put here the same image, once with a transparent background and once with a solid background. And you see that the one with the transparent background seems much more embedded on the online whiteboard compared to the one with the solid background. We might not see this when we change the color of this shape to white, then we don't notice that. But maybe you're changing the background color of your board, or you have like a specific color of the shape or whatever. So in this case, I usually recommend to our users to use images with a transparent background color if this is possible. Now, where to find images? I want to show you some of my favorite sources where you can find images, and on some of these platforms, the images are completely royalty-free. So let's have a look first at Undraw, which is one of my absolute favorites. So let's open here Undraw. And what you can do is you can search anything. So let's maybe search for workshop. And now you see some images some suggestions for workshops. And in this case, what I really like is that you can also adjust the color of these images. So you have the option to put here as well your corporate colors or whatever. So you can change some of these basic colors of the images. And then you have the option to download the SVG with the transparent background, or you can download this as a PNG. And usually you find very cool images here on Undraw. So check it out, and they're all completely royalty free. So you don't need to worry about what to do with these images. Another very nice source is Pixabay or Unsplash or Pexels. So they are more or less quite similar. So if we go to Pixabay, then we find here free stock images or royalty-free stock images. And the cool thing is you don't even need to download them to work with Collaboard. So of course, you can always download them, but you can also just copy the image, then jump back to your online whiteboard and just paste it with Control V. And in this case, you have these royalty-free images directly on the board. And the same sources are Unsplash and Pexels. So I'm using them in parallel, looking for images. And then on one of these platforms, usually you find an image that fits your needs. Now, images is one, but icons and emojis is something else. So now let's look in case you don't find enough shapes here in Collaboard. So maybe you're looking for specific icons or emojis. And I put here a few sources also for semi-royalty or royalty-free icons. And for example, if you go to UX Wing, you have a big library of free icons, which you can use for your commercial projects without attribution. So let's say you're needing social media icons, or let's say we're also looking for something for our workshop. Then in this case, we find here icons we can download and reuse in Collaboard. So UX Wing is a great source. Also, Icon Finder is a cool source. So let's search here as well for workshop. And here in this case, I can also say if I want to have like the premium icons or just the free ones, and I can reuse them easily in Collaboard. Again, I can just copy them and paste them, or I can download and upload them, but they are usually easy and fast ways to add this content directly to your board. And then you can also work with emojis, and emojis are basically just text. So I'm adding here a text element on this board, making it a little bit bigger. And now I have different ways on adding the emojis. In my case, I'm using a Windows laptop with Windows 11. So I can just press the Windows button and then a point, basically what you do at the end of the sentence. And now what pops up is the emoji library of Windows. So I can start adding these emojis in a very easy and nice way. Otherwise, I can always use a source like Emojipedia. Let's say I'm looking for some flags for countries or whatever. So in this case, I can just select here this emoji, or I can also go here to look at how it looks on the different devices, select it or copy it so it's in my clipboard, going back to the Collaboard project and paste it. And you see an emoji is always text. So this means I can also underline it, I can make it italic. Some of them I can make bold, and for some of them I can also change the color. But in this case, as this is already colorized, I can't change the color. Yeah, that's something very important. So try to work with images and combine different kinds of images, use emojis, shapes. So everything you can put together to visualize your ideas, thoughts, tasks, and everything makes your online whiteboard more appealing to your attendees. Now, when you design a board, you might need to know some keyboard shortcuts or some other things that help you being faster. So let's look at my most used favorites. So undo redo is something I'm using very often. And here now you can just use Ctrl-Z or Ctrl-Y to undo and redo actions. You also have this in the menu. So you have here the option to just press a button for undo redo. But for me, it's so common to use the keyboard. This is why I'm often just using these keyboard shortcuts for the undo and the redo. Now, when we select elements in Collaboard, sometimes we want to select multiple elements together. So for this, we have a feature called area selection. And there are basically two ways how I can activate area selection in Collaboard. So there is a way to do this permanently with the keyboard shortcut R, or I can activate the area selection only by pressing Shift. Let me show you shortly the difference. So I will add 5 sticky notes. And if I want now to select all of them, I'm pressing now the key Shift. I can select them, I can move them around, and I have always the ability to navigate on the canvas. Let's say I have another 5 sticky notes, and I want now to move the first one and then the second one and so on. So in this case, I can press R, and if I'm doing that, I'm keeping to be in this selection mode. So this means I can select the first 5 sticky notes, then I can select the next one and move around. and until I hit R again, or I go to the menu and say I would like to go to this single selection, I always have the option to select multiple objects at the same time. So there are different concepts you can use for this area selection, and it depends a little bit on your use case, what's fitting better in one or the other situation. Now, zooming is something super important on an online whiteboard. So imagine working in a physical meeting room with a physical whiteboard. Now, when you're very, very close to the whiteboard, you have a high zoom level. This means you only see part of the board, but the part you see it clear and all the details. And now imagine you're 5 meters away of your whiteboard. So this means you're zoomed out and you see all the content, but you don't see the details anymore. And in the online whiteboard, it's basically working the same. So there are different ways how to zoom. So there is like a keyboard shortcut to always go to a zoom level of 100%. And important to know is that Collaboard is optimized to work at 100%. So if I go now to 100% in our case, and if I'm adding a new sticky note, you see now this sticky note has exactly, okay, I've just wanted to have 1, now we have 5 again. But anyway, you see these sticky notes now have exactly the right size to start working in them. So adding now here our idea, for example, is something very easy, and you always see it in the right dimension. If you add sticky notes at 1% zoom level, then you barely see them basically. So you can zoom by using keyboard shortcuts, but you can also use your mouse wheel, or you can also zoom very granularly by using minus or plus keys. And these are the way how to zoom in and out. Now, when you're moving around the whiteboard, like I'm doing now, then it could happen that there is an object, in this case it's white, and instead of moving, now I'm moving these objects. So if I want to make sure that when I move around the board, I don't accidentally move any objects, there is an option to press the space bar. And if you look at my mouse pointer, when I press the space bar, the mouse pointer changed a little bit, and now I can move around without the need to worry that I am moving objects. And as soon as I am releasing the spacebar, then as well I have the option to select the elements again. Also a super important feature that helps you when building and designing boards to not move objects you don't want to move anymore. Now, the last of my favorites I want to show you is to double click. So Collaboard remembers what you have done last. So let's say I'm adding here a text. Now Collaboard remembers, oh, okay, he added the text. And if I make a double click, I'm adding this text again and again. And in our case, they're now a little bit small. So let's select all of them by pressing Shift, making them bigger. And Collaboard is remembering this for the text, for the notes, and for the shapes. So let's say I'm adding here a clock. Now, just with a double click, I can add more clocks again, so it remembers them. And for the sticky notes, it's working quite similar. So let's say I'm added one sticky note. And now if I make a double click, you see there's a sticky note in green. So in Collaboard, you have the possibility to define in the default settings the colors of your sticky notes. So let's say I would like to have a different green. So the green should be more something like that. Now Collaboard remembers this color, and if I make the double click, I think we need to do it like this. If I do the double click, then you see the sticky notes are coming directly in that color. So let's assume you want to use the sticky notes in your corporate colors, then go to the default settings, hit it there, and then just using double click, you can easily and fastly add sticky notes as you like. Yeah, these are my most used favorites when designing an online whiteboard. And with that, we are closing this first session where we talked about designing boards, basically. So we're moving on to the next chapter where we talk about onboarding and icebreaker exercises. So when you have the challenge to onboard new people for a workshop, or in your organization, you have the task to make sure others are also learning how to work with an online whiteboard, you should think about some nice icebreaker and onboarding exercises. Onboarding to take away the fear of people using this new technology and to make them learn how to use the online whiteboard just with some easy tasks. And in case you are doing a workshop, you need to be sure that you don't spend a lot of time at the beginning training the people on how to use the board. So you need to think about some clever ways that they learn fast, and after a few minutes they are able to contribute in your workshop. And let me give you some ideas of icebreakers and onboarding exercises we use as well for ourselves, and where I believe that they perform quite good. So the first thing we check together is a dartboard. So this could be like a mood picture, or in our case, what I do often is I ask the people, how many online meetings do you attend per week? And then the only thing they need to do, they need just to grab one of these darts and move them to the dartboard to say, okay, I have 18 online meetings per board, or maybe per week, or I have only 10, and so on. A very simple exercise, but the people, they learn how to grab an element and how to move this element on the board. So that's something very nice. And how have I done that? I added the dartboard, I put it into the background, I locked that, and the darts you're seeing here, these are just emojis we are using, and that's a nice way to do that. And of course, these numbers could be for any other things. You can also have like a pie chart where you ask about the mood for people, and the ideas here are more or less endless what to do. Another cool exercise is when you want to build groups. And for example, in this case, we're using an aquarium. So people, they need to grab a fish and move the fish in one of the specific aquariums. So how have we done that here? So you see, these are images with a transparent background. And now I'm just grabbing this fish, maybe make it a little bit bigger, just a fish. And the cool thing is, it always looks like that this fish is swimming in this aquarium. And then this exercise is quite easy. So people just start adding more and more fishes to the aquarium. And then you can say, okay, now we have all the people which are in the blue aquarium, the green one, and so on. And of course, you can use this methodology also to do many other things. For example, for voting, if you have like an idea A, B, or C, then people can put the fishes if they like idea I one more than the other. So that's another way how to use this exercise. Now, as one of our attendees actually is traveling to her vacation, and this is something where people, or a lot of people, like to talk about vacations. So that's a great onboarding exercise as well. And here, just an idea where we ask the people, where are you going on vacation? They can choose if they prefer to go to the beach and to the sea, or if they more like the mountains and the nature. And in this case, we added here emojis, suitcase emojis. So they just need to, they just need to move them to the other element, and you have to the other direction. And you have seen now what happened. So when I clicked on that, it jumped to the front. So this was absolutely my fault because I didn't lock it. And this is why it's so important to lock elements. And when you do that, you see it's super easy now to move the suitcases to one side or the other. A similar exercise where it's also about moving content from one direction to the other is this or that icebreaker. This is especially useful when the attendees don't know each other, and maybe you would like to know if they are more, maybe you want to get some personal information about them. And this example I created here is quite easy. So the people have here some points, like the green one, the blue one, and the red one. Then they need to add their names. So let's say Nina and Sophie, for example. And now the easy thing is they just need to go here and say, okay, I'm more a car guy, I'm more Instagram, I'm more an Instagram guy, or in this case, I'm more in favor of ice cream than cupcakes, for example. And again, what's super important is that you lock all the elements except these points and the stuff where people should interact with, because otherwise it will always cause troubles. It's also a simple exercise where the people learn easily how to move elements around the board. They also learn, in this case, how to change the text. And you also get some personal information about these people. And of course, the concept is endless, so you can have these ideas, if it's a car or a train or whatever, with that you're absolutely free. Now, the last exercise I would like to show you is also about vacations or about the traveling. And usually when we use this exercise, we teach the people on how to work with comments. So in Collaboard, there's an option to add comments to the board. And let's maybe zoom in a little bit so I can explain this to you. So in this case, we ask them to add a comment somewhere on the board. So let's add a comment here. And then they write in this comment that they like to travel there. This is my next location, for example. And all the people, they're all adding these comments. So you see then this world map having a lot of comments. And now what they do, they look for the comments of other people, join that comment, and also say, I would like to join you, or this is a great destination. I have been there a few years ago, and so on. And in this way, they learn how to use the comments, and it's an easy and fast thing. It's totally not related to the workshop content because you're talking about vocation. So also if they do something not correctly or whatever, that's pointless. So usually that's a cool way to start. So never start with an online whiteboard in a new technology, starting directly with the topic you're talking about. Doing something playful at the beginning is highly appreciated by the audience, and then after they learned how to use the application, you can move on to the real workshop content. Collaboard is an online whiteboard, so this means you can always draw and sketch. And let me show you one other icebreaker exercise I like to use, and this is the circle drawing game. It's quickly explained. So you see here some examples. So every attendee gets one row of circles, and then they need to use the drawing tools in Collaboard to create something like that, to be a little bit artistic, for example. And most of the users, they don't have a tablet, so they have a mouse or a PC with a touchpad, and drawing is quite complicated and difficult in that way. But this makes it even more funny because the results you're getting are usually quite interesting, let's say it like that. And it's also something easy to do. It's completely out of context of your workshop. People learn how to draw, and usually you have a lot of fun. And fun means positive emotions, and then they start to think positively about the tool itself, and this helps them afterwards in the whole workshop context. Now let's look at the one last example if you want to make the people thinking a little bit more about the workshop context. So let's say here we add another text element. Let's start with a thesis. Maybe we start with a very provocative thesis where we say online meetings are much more efficient than offline meetings, for example. And then you see here this area with the values, if people fully agree, or if they somehow agree, or if they completely disagree with this thesis. And then there are different ways on how to use that. So you want to get now the opinion of the people. So one way is that they are adding shapes. So usually I'm doing that. So they need to add a shape, maybe fill it with a color to say, okay, I am disagreeing with your thesis. Another nice way is that you can ask people to upload a selfie of themselves. So in Collaboard, it's possible to take a picture, like a selfie. Or what's also very nice is you can tell them, hey, if you're famous, I'm sure you will find a picture of yourself using the integrated image search. And if you have like a name like mine, which is not that often, usually you find a nice image. People can add the image and can make it a little bit bigger. And you see now the image is very small. And this is why this thesis is so big. So I'm zoomed out now to 8%. So usually I need to make this much smaller, so it's working better. So if I zoom in to 50 or 60%, then I don't need to rescale the elements after I have added them. Yes, and these were some ideas you can use for onboarding and icebreaker exercises. They are all super simple. In a few minutes, you have built them. And let's say you would like to explore something like this circle drawing game or the thesis. You can always go to our template library. We have here a category called icebreaker and warm-up games. For example, there you find the thesis, or you also find the circle drawing game and some other cool icebreaker and onboarding games you can use. So let's assume you have done a lot of boards, you have done a lot of onboarding exercises and many workshops. So you will end up having many projects in Collaboard. And this means you need to organize them. So what I would like to show you now is are three things. So how you can build your own templates and how you can reuse the content you created. Then I will tell you more about the concept of spaces and how to tag elements in Collaboard. So how to build your own templates. So there are a few ways to do that. So the first way is you create just one giant board, for example, like this one here, where you have all your elements. Let's say these are now these template elements. And now what you can do is you can always copy them, and you can just paste them to another board. So let's say we would like to bring this to our breakout board. We're just going in here, we're pasting that, and we can easily reuse all these elements we have put on one board. So this is one way how to do that. Another way how to do that is that let's say you create a specific board for a specific workshop. And then usually you have also the option to duplicate a board. So you can always duplicate that. You have here the option as well to rename it. And we have many customers using this way. So they create a specific board for a specific purpose. And then they are just duplicating this template and reusing this. Now let's assume you want to organize this a little bit better. Then you can also work with the concept called spaces. And to show you that, let me change the language here to English again. Okay. Now you see you have here projects and you have spaces. And the space basically is very similar to a folder connected with permissions. So let me make an example. We have here a space called templates. So all the people of our organization, when they created the template, they put this template in this space or folder. Now we see here the active users of this space. So this means I can invite other people to join this space. And as soon as they are part of this space, they have access to the templates in there. And then, of course, if I'm removing somebody, he also, she loses all the access to all the templates in that space. And spaces are really great to organize, because here you can, let's create a new space. So we say new folder for projects. We can give this space a color if we want. We can create that. Then we have the option to make it preferred. So it's showing always on top. And I can easily add other users. So we don't need to send an invitation or something like that. I'm just adding here the email address, defining the permissions they should have on all the boards, send the invite, and as soon as the invite is sent, people have immediately access to the space. So it's really a great tool to bring an organization and a structure in your boards. Maybe you do spaces for projects, for clients, for specific departments or whatever. So it's really like folders you have in other applications or on your file systems. Now, the third way to organize boards is using tags. So let's have a look at this board here. And I need to find a board where I'm the owner, otherwise I can't put tags. Okay, this one here, I'm the owner. And now I have also the option to add tags. So let's say this is a template, like a template for a business model canvas. So I can also start to using tagging the boards. And then if I click on these tags, I see, okay, these are now all my template boards. And I can use the tags here, but I can also use the tags inside spaces. And this is just another level more that helps me organizing and finding the boards I am using a lot. Yes, and these are these three things I would want to tell you about the board organizations, how you build your own templates, how you work with spaces, and also how you're tagging your boards. Now, to conclude this webinar, we have a short look at the Collaboard Roadmap. So what's coming next? Very soon, this means in August, we're going to release a new line feature. So we have already the possibility to connect two elements with each other. So maybe let's show you shortly how this is done. We wanted to duplicate this one. And I can already connect them with a line. And this new line feature we are going to add will basically allow us to put this connection anywhere on the board without being connected. So all the features you see here, like the colors, like the way of the line, if it has arrows or not, and so on, this can be applied then to this new line object that will come quite soon. And I'm really looking forward to that, because I think it's a great feature, and it will enrich the collaboration experience a lot and help you design your boards in a new way. Now we're also working on some improvements. So we worked on the voting. So in Collaboard, you have the option to vote and rate on elements with this thumbs up voting or the star rating. And we're going to add a few improvements. One is that you can select the elements you want to vote on. So at the moment, you can just vote on all the objects on your board. Then with the improvement, you can basically pre-select the elements and then vote on them. And the other is that you will have just with one click the option to share all the voting results with all the attendees by putting them directly on the whiteboard itself. And the last improvement, which is actually already live, are community templates. So in our template library, we started to add a new category called the community templates, and some engaged users already provided the first templates, and they're quite cool. So in case you also want to contribute, feel free to contact us. The community templates will be directly available in the app itself. You can also put your logo and brand it if you like. So here we really want to open up our solution to make it possible for everybody to add templates. So if you're interested in that, drop us an email or contact us via the website. Let us know your template idea, and we'll make it happen that it's available to all the Collaboard users. And then the next bigger feature is called Dynamic Table. But I don't want to tell you much about that. So it's a little bit a teaser. So you will learn more about this in our next webinar. We have now also a break, a summer break, and our next webinars will be then in August on our website. So we'll for sure send you an email again when they are available and you can book them. Now, before we end, first of all, I want to thank you for your time, and I have a small request. So what usually helps us a lot are ratings on websites like G2. So I'm just putting here the link into the chat, and in case you have some time afterwards or another day, we would really appreciate if you could provide us there an honest voting or rating basically, or if you leave us a review, that helps us a lot. And with this small favor, I also close this webinar. So thank you very much for attending, and I wish you all a great summer and hopefully good sessions with Collaboard.